It was supposed to be just another exhausting day. Olivia Beltran, a mother of two, left her second job at midnight, her body aching from cleaning offices. The air was heavy with the promise of a storm. She hurried home, where her children, ages 7 and 9, waited, asleep and dreaming. Her worn shoes splashed through puddles as she moved quickly through the darkened streets of Chicago, her mind filled with tomorrow's bills and yesterday's struggles. She longed for nothing more than to collapse into her bed, stealing a few precious hours of rest before starting all over again. And then, the city went dark. A sudden, massive power outage plunged half the neighborhoods into chaos. Sirens screamed, traffic lights blinked out, news channels screamed of economic sabotage. The darkness that enveloped the city mirrored the shadow that would soon fall over Olivia's life, unexpected, terrifying, and seemingly impossible to escape. As she finally reached her apartment building, navigating the pitch-black stairwell by the light of her dying phone, Olivia had no idea that this blackout would become the catalyst for her worst nightmare. And before sunrise, police were at Olivia's door. The harsh knocking jolted her from a too-brief sleep. Her children stirred in the bedroom they shared as the pounding continued. When she opened the door, squinting against the harsh flashlights, aimed at her face, confusion gave way to horror. Uniformed officers filled her small entryway, their expressions grim and unyielding. Confused and terrified, she barely had time to kiss her children's foreheads before they handcuffed her and dragged her into a squad car. Her mother, who lived down the hall, arrived just in time to grab the frightened children as Olivia was led away, her protests falling on deaf ears. If you are enjoying the story, type 5 in the comments and subscribe for more videos like this. If not, type 0. It helps me create even better content for you. Continuing. Her crime? They claimed security footage had captured a woman tampering. With a junction box near the main grid, and Olivia, exhausted and worn, matched the profile. Brown hair, medium height, tired clothes. That was all they needed. No lawyer, no explanations, no mercy. The interrogation room was cold and sterile, a far cry from the warm apartment she had created for her children despite their poverty. The detective across from her slid photographs across the metal table. Grainy images of a woman whose back was to the camera, standing near electrical equipment. "That's not me," Olivia insisted, her voice cracking with desperation. "I was cleaning the Westridge office building until midnight. There are security logs, people who saw me." But her pleas seemed to vanish into the air, unheard and unacknowledged. The headlines were immediate and brutal. "Local woman arrested." In city's worst blackout. Single mother behind economic disaster. Olivia was paraded in front of cameras, her tear-streaked face splashed across every television screen. Her children cried for her, clinging to their bewildered grandmother, unable to understand why their mother had been taken away. 7-year-old. Miguel asked every day when she was coming home, while 9-year-old Sophia had stopped speaking altogether, retreating into a silence as profound as the one that had swallowed her mother's freedom. As days stretched into weeks, the absence of Olivia created a void in their lives that nothing could fill. Will the truth ever surface? Or will Olivia's life be sacrificed to satisfy the public's need for someone to blame? She sat in a cold cell, days bleeding into nights, questioned endlessly, accused relentlessly. The fluorescent lights never dimmed, making sleep nearly impossible. Her cellmate, a woman awaiting trial for drug possession, barely acknowledged her existence. Olivia's days were punctuated by brief phone calls to her mother and children, conversations that always ended too soon and left her heart aching. She pleaded, "I was working, I have timesheets, witnesses, anything, please check." But no one listened, because it was easier, safer, to blame someone powerless. The authorities needed a villain. Olivia Beltran was poor, invisible, and easy to crucify. Her public defender, a young man with too many cases and too little time, barely looked up from his files during their meetings. "The evidence is circumstantial," he admitted, "but in the current climate, with the economic damage from the blackout, it's going to be tough." His words hung in the air, heavy with the implication that justice might be a luxury Olivia couldn't afford. The trial was scheduled. Olivia faced years in prison, losing her children, her life, everything. As the date approached, her hope dimmed like a candle running out of wax. Her mother, Estella, tried to rally support among their neighbors and at the church, but fear and suspicion had tainted even those relationships. Some believed the news reports, others didn't want to get involved, and no one cared. No one, except one. For Olivia, trapped in a nightmare not of her making, salvation would come from a direction she could never have anticipated, a stranger who still believed in truth and the power of one person to make a difference. As winter settled over Chicago, bringing with it bitter winds and early darkness, the spark of justice that seemed all but extinguished was about to be rekindled by someone with both the resources and the determination to see it burn bright once more. Florian Delacroix, a self-made millionaire known more for his eccentricity than his wealth, saw Olivia's story flicker across his screen one evening as he worked late in his penthouse office. Something gnawed at him, a gut feeling born from growing up poor himself in Chicago's roughest neighborhoods, knowing how easily the system devoured those it was supposed to protect. Unlike most who had shaken the dust of poverty from their feet, Florian had never forgotten where he came from or the thin line between survival and destruction. As he stared at Olivia's haunted eyes in the news footage, he recognized something, the raw fear of someone innocent caught in a machine too powerful to fight alone. Have you ever felt your life spiral out of control due to circumstances beyond your understanding? Share your thoughts in the comments below. He requested the security footage personally, using his considerable influence to gain access to evidence usually locked away from public scrutiny. In his home theater, converted temporarily into an investigation room, Florian and his assistant spent hours analyzing every frame. He noticed what no one else had. The timestamp didn't match the power grid's collapse. The woman in the blurry footage wore a jacket Olivia didn't own. The posture, the movements, all wrong. Look at how she moves, Florian pointed out, comparing the footage to videos of Olivia leaving her workplace. This woman doesn't have the same gait. She doesn't favor her right side like Olivia does. It was the kind of detail that could easily be overlooked, especially by overworked detectives eager to close a high-profile case. But for someone who had built an empire by noticing what others missed, it was glaring. Florian didn't stop there. He hired private investigators. He demanded access to traffic cameras, to building records, to maintenance logs. He spent tens of thousands of dollars without blinking. His days, once filled with business meetings and investment decisions, now revolved around proving the innocence of a woman he'd never met. His closest friends thought he'd lost his mind. "Why this case?" his business partner asked. "What does it matter to you?" Florian couldn't fully explain it himself, only that sometimes a single injustice could represent all the wrongs in a broken system, and he had the power to fix this one. As Olivia's trial date approached, will Florian's investigation bear fruit in time, or will an innocent woman pay the price for a crime she didn't commit? And he found it. After weeks of relentless pursuit, a pattern emerged from the chaos. The real culprit, a maintenance contractor, falsifying repairs to hide an illegal side operation. The outage had been a desperate mistake during an unauthorized connection, an attempt to divert power to a cryptocurrency mining operation that had gone catastrophically wrong. There was a real villain, and it wasn't Olivia. Armed with this knowledge, Florian assembled a team of the best lawyers money could buy, experts in criminal defense who typically represented corporate clients, not cleaning women from the South side. For once, the weight of privilege would be thrown behind justice rather than against it. Florian stormed into the court on the day of Olivia's hearing, armed with undeniable evidence. His lawyers, top of their fields, demanded an emergency review. The courtroom buzzed with tension as Florian took a seat directly behind Olivia, whose shoulders were slumped in resignation. When she turned and saw him, a stranger in an impeccable suit who nodded at her with quiet confidence, confusion crossed her features. The judge, reluctant but curious, agreed to hear the new evidence. What followed was a complete unraveling. Olivia sat trembling, too afraid to hope, as video footage, sworn testimonies, and irrefutable digital logs proved her innocence. The contractor, now in custody himself, had confessed when confronted with the evidence Florian's team had assembled. Do you believe that the justice system protects the innocent as it should? I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. The prosecutor stammered. The police chief sweated. The judge turned to Olivia, his voice low. You are free to go. This court apologizes for the grave injustice you have suffered. The courtroom gasped. Olivia burst into tears, not the bitter tears of humiliation she'd shed so often, but the raw, disbelieving sobs of a woman who had been buried alive and clawed her way back into the light. Her children ran into her arms, wailing with relief. Sophia's voice returned in that moment, her small voice crying, "Mama," over and over, as if to make up for all the words unsaid during their separation. For Olivia, holding her children after. Weeks of separation felt like coming back to life, each sob releasing some of the fear and despair that had become her constant companions. But amid the joy of reunion, questions remained. How would she rebuild what had been broken? Could a life interrupted ever truly be restored? Reporters clamored. This time the headlines were different. Mother wrongfully accused, freed by self-made. Millionaire. Justice served after heartbreaking ordeal. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed as Olivia emerged, blinking in the winter sunlight that seemed impossibly bright after her time in detention. She clutched her children close, still afraid they might be taken from her again. Behind them walked Florian, who had tried to slip away unnoticed but was quickly surrounded by journalists, eager for a statement from the millionaire who had become an unlikely champion of justice. "Mr. Delacroix, why did you get involved?" "One," reporters shouted above the others. Florian hesitated, uncomfortable with the attention that normally didn't bother him. "Because," he finally said, "in a just world, it shouldn't take someone like me to free someone like her." Florian approached, Olivia holding out his hand, not like a savior but like a man who understood suffering. "You don't owe me anything," he said simply. "You deserved better." Olivia could barely speak, her throat choked with emotion, but she managed to whisper, "Thank you," for seeing me when no one else would. It was a simple exchange, witnessed by dozens but truly understood only by the two people at its center. Two people from vastly different worlds, connected by a moment of recognition that transcended those differences. As the crowd dispersed and the excitement dimmed, the reality of Olivia's situation became clear. Her apartment had been rented to another family, her jobs had been filled, the compensation process would be long and uncertain. Freedom, it seemed, was just the beginning of another difficult journey. Is there a turning point in this story that might lead to lasting change, not just for Olivia, but for others in similar situations? In the weeks that followed, Florian didn't abandon Olivia. He helped set up a legal fund to fight for compensation. He paid for therapy for Olivia and her children. He connected her with job opportunities that valued her resilience and strength. But perhaps most importantly, he listened to her story, really listened, and helped her transform her pain into purpose. "I don't want anyone else to go through what I did," Olivia told him during one of their meetings. "The system is broken." Florian nodded, understanding flickering in his eyes. "Then let's fix it," he said simply. Together, they established the Truth and Justice Initiative, a non-profit dedicated to reviewing cases of economically disadvantaged defendants who might have been wrongfully accused. With Florian's resources and Olivia's first-hand experience, they created a powerful alliance that soon attracted attorneys, investigators, and community activists eager to address systemic inequities in the criminal justice system. Olivia, once a name mocked on headlines, became a symbol, a reminder that in a world eager to crush the voiceless, sometimes all it takes is one person willing to fight for the truth. Her story, which had begun in darkness and despair, was transformed into a beacon of hope for others, caught in the same crushing machinery of prejudice and expedience. As spring arrived in Chicago, bringing new life to the city that had nearly destroyed her, Olivia found herself speaking at community meetings, church gatherings, and eventually legislative hearings, her quiet voice growing stronger with each telling of her story. Sophia and Miguel, once traumatized by their mother's absence, began to heal as they witnessed her transformation from victim to advocate. And sometimes it takes one compassionate heart not to solve equations or build empires, but to simply recognize the humanity others choose to ignore. Olivia didn't just survive, she rose, and this time the world had no choice but to see her. On the anniversary of her arrest, Olivia stood before a crowd gathered in a community center in her neighborhood. Florian sat unobtrusively in the back, watching with quiet pride as she spoke about resilience, justice, and the power of compassion. "A year ago today I was invisible," she said, her voice steady now where it once had trembled. "But someone chose to see me, and in being seen, I found my own strength." The Truth and Justice Initiative had already helped free 3 wrongfully accused individuals and was reviewing dozens more cases. Olivia had a new job as the community outreach coordinator for the initiative, using her experience to build bridges between legal professionals and the communities most vulnerable to injustice. Her children were thriving, the shadows of trauma receding as new memories of strength and purpose took their place. And as for Florian, the eccentric millionaire had found something his wealth had never been able to buy: the profound satisfaction of using his privilege to dismantle, even in a small way, the very systems that had created it. Congratulations. Type 9 in the comments so that I know you stayed until the end with me. Thank you for watching, and until tomorrow's story on this same channel.